Hello, my dear students. Welcome you all to Sri Jayendra Rank Zone classes. I'm your mentor and your friend for the subject biology, and I will be taking the zoology section, that is the animal science. My dear students, in the last lecture, we have completed about different types of reproductive isolation. Those reproductive isolations, they are very necessary, mean a very important point of view when we consider the timeline of evolution. Okay, now we are going to start with the natural selection and the polymorphism. Okay, so our topic for today is natural selection and polymorphism and the types of natural selection. Now, a population is called polymorphic for a character if two or more distinct forms are present in this population. If a particular population is exhibiting two or more than two types of morphological forms of the same trait or same character, like for example, blood group. There are four types of blood group which are present in human beings: A, B, AB, and O. So these different blood groups, they basically help us to understand that natural selection may lead to evolution of characters, differentiation of characters, which may lead to polymorphism. They are due to the presence of different genotypes. Sickle cell anemia is also an example of polymorphism. In this disease, an amino acid is changed in polypeptide chain due to the change in one of the nitrogen base. Glutamic acid on the sixth position of beta chain is replaced by valine. The adult hemoglobin, there are having two types of chains, alpha and beta. So the formula is alpha to beta 2. Two alpha chains and two beta chains. Alpha chain with 141 amino acid and beta chain with 146 amino acid. So on the beta chain, the sixth position was having a nitrogen base, glutamic acid, which is replaced by valine in case of sickle cell anemia. This gives different types of characters, morphological advantages, survival advantage in case of negroids and all. Okay, so this sickle cell anemia along with sickle cell trait, in which the normal RBC leaves its biconcave shape to be converted into a sickle shape. That is why the normal shape of RBC is changed into a sickle shape. Sickling of RBC for negroids become a survival advantage to fight them against the malarial pathogen. So this basically helps us to understand, okay, these different morphological forms, they can exhibit in an individual as a result of evolution, as a result of change in genotype. So according to natural selection, we studied about that the heritable variations enabling better survival are enabled to reproduce and to make or form greater number of progenies. Okay. So the organism in which heterozygous condition is present for this characters, the RBC becomes sickle shaped. In this type of RBC, malarial parasite can't have a normal growth. They cannot complete their life cycle. That is why these individuals are resistant towards malaria. That is why I was telling that it is a survival advantage in case of person suffering from sickle cell anemia, that they might get resistant towards the malarial parasite. The HBS condition means if the condition is homozygous, then it becomes a lethal effect. Okay, in homozygous condition. Okay, the organism with HBA heterozygous condition are selected by nature because these are the fittest of all. the lose of HBS gene due to the death of organism having HBS which is recovered and balanced by the reproduction of heterozygous condition. So if a person is having a homozygous condition, the loss of HBS gene due to the death of organism can be recovered by the next coming progeny in the form of heterozygous condition, that is sickle cell trait or the phenomenon of sickling, in which the RBC becomes sickle shaped. Okay, so as the RBC becomes sickle shaped, the oxygen carrying capacity decreases. But if it is in heterozygous condition, 50% of RBCs they are normal, 50% of RBCs are having HBS, 50% of they are having adult hemoglobin. So 50% of RBCs they are sickle shaped, their oxygen carrying capacity decreases, but that part is compensated by 50% of normal RBCs. This type of selection is called balancing selection. Okay, so this type of natural selection comes under the category of balancing selection or balanced polymorphism. It means the preservation of genetic variability is maintained by the selection of the heterozygotes. So heterozygous conditions, they can maintain the variations, they can maintain the hybrid vigor, okay, in the coming generations, which is called balanced polymorphism. But this kind of balancing selection is found very rarely in nature. It is found very rarely in nature. So this is all about the natural selection and polymorphism. Okay. So I will also tell you about the Hardy-Weinberg's principle, which tells us that sum total of all the alleles means the gene frequencies in a given gene pool, it remains constant. In the coming lectures, I will be telling more about the Hardy-Weinberg principle. Okay. Now we are going to discuss about the types of natural selection. Based upon different organisms, environmental relationship, following different kinds of natural selection have been recognized. Based upon different organism and environment relationship, these three different types of natural selections have been recognized: stabilizing selection, directional selection, and disruptive selection. Stabilizing selection, directional selection, and disruptive selection. Before moving to these natural selection types of natural selections, I would like to tell you something about Hardy-Weinberg's principle, which will help you to understand the types of natural selection. Hardy-Weinberg principle. According to this principle, in a given population, one can find out the frequency of occurrence of the alleles of a gene or a locus. Okay, this frequency is supposed to remain fixed and even remain the same through generations. The main motto of this thought is that in a given population, the total amount of genetic variations, the total amount of parental genes, total amount of hybrid vigor, it basically remains constant. Okay, as the frequency of occurrence of a particular variable allele in a particular gene pool or in a particular population remains always constant. So according to Hardy-Weinberg principle, allele frequencies in a population are stable and is constant from generation to generation. Okay, mean total amount of characters, whether parental or change, mean hybrid characters, they remain total characters, total frequencies, they remain constant. The gene pool which is the total genes and their alleles in a population remains constant, which is known as genetic equilibrium. It is given by a mathematical expression. Suppose P and Q, these are two allelic frequencies. So P square plus Q square plus 2PQ is equal to 1. Means when a particular frequency, gene frequency like P combines with Q, so the total amount of frequencies to occur in the coming generation remains always constant. When the frequency of these allelic genes are measured, they basically differ from the expected value. The difference means the direction indicates the extent of evolutionary change. Okay. If somehow when the frequencies of a total population are measured and they differ from the expected value, so that point basically gives a direction of the flow of evolutionary change. Any difference in the expected and calculated allele frequencies, it gives a direction about the evolutionary change. About the evolutionary change. Understood? So this is Hardy-Weinberg principle. In the coming slide, I will be dealing with this Hardy-Weinberg principle in detail. Further, to understand the different types of selection, this much criteria is needed to be understood. According to Hardy-Weinberg principle, allele frequencies in a given population are stable, okay, and they remains constant from generation to generation. If any changes come, the change basically gives us an idea of the direction of evolutionary change, that in that direction, in that part, basically evolution is going on, change is going on. So understood? So according to the gene pool, mean the total genes and their alleles, they always remains constant. Okay. Now, we will be discussing all the three types of selections: stabilizing selection, directional selection, and disruptive selection. Stabilizing selection. Stabilizing selection operates when phenotypic feature coincide with optimum environmental conditions and competition is not present. So according to stabilizing selection, which tells us that all the phenotypes, they are not meeting any type of environmental competition for the resources like food, shelter, and the reproductive competitors. If they are not meeting all these competitors, the phenotype feature will be mean the maximum, or it will coincide with the optimum environment. So this is basically seen in case of stabilizing selection, in which more number of individuals acquire the mean means more number of individuals they have all types of allelic frequencies. There is very less amount of elimination of genes or alleles, means a particular character. Okay. It keeps the population genetically constant, mean all the characters they are mostly resembling in all of them. Okay, so it keeps a population genetically constant. It favors the average or normal phenotypes and eliminate the extreme variants. Extreme variants, whether adapted adversely. Always remember, in case of stabilizing selection, the extreme variants, whether they are wild or whether they are extremely changed, when all the characters are changed, they are eliminated. Only the ones are kept as a part of population which are having the average or the normal phenotypes that fall towards both ends of the bell-shaped curve of the variability for the distribution of measurements of phenotypic traits. Okay, I'll show you with the help of the bell-shaped curve. Due to continuous elimination of both extremes, the bell-shaped curve tends to narrow. Okay, because of the continuous elimination of both the extremes, the bell-shaped curve tends to narrow. Stabilizing selection always operates in constant or unchanging environment. That is why environmental stress is not there. Absent. So there is no environmental stress, there is less amount of competition. So it is like this, you can see, in which this is the peak. This peak basically shows what? That maximum individuals are exhibiting a particular phenotype or a character. Are adapted and showing same character, same phenotypic character. Okay, the extremes are always eliminated. Okay, this part is the extreme where they have started to adapt. This part is the extreme where they are showing that they are going to form a new species. Okay, so phenotypes favored by natural selection, it is given by this median line. Okay, that is why the maximum number of individuals, they are sharing the same mean. They are sharing the same mean. Okay, mortality in babies. The birth weight of human babies provides another example influenced by stabilizing selection. The optimum birth weight favored by stabilizing selection is 7.3 pounds, or around, I could say, ranging from 2.8 to 3.7 kgs. Okay, so the average weight always remains constant. The reason is, if some of them they are having more weight, they are eliminated. Some of them they are having less weight, they are eliminated. So because of the more weight or less weight, the neonates, they undergoes mortality. So these mortalities, infantile mortality rate, it basically maintains its proper pace. Newborn infants less than 5.5 pounds and more than 10 pounds. Okay, 5.5 pounds is around 1.9 kgs or 1.8 kgs. If they are less than that, okay, when they are going to abort, they are going to die, and more than 10 pounds also they are going to die because of they are having highest mortality rate. The curve for mortality is virtually the complement of the curve of survival. Okay. So stabilizing selection says that almost all the average the average part of the population, the maximum number of individuals, they are sharing the same phenotypic character, which is meeting or which is coinciding with the optimum environmental conditions without the competition. Okay, or competition is very less. It keeps the population genetically constant. It favors the average or the normal phenotypes and eliminates the extreme variants that fall towards both the sides. Okay, when from the starting of the bell and ending towards the bell. Okay. Due to continuous elimination of both the extremes, the bell-shaped curve tends to narrow. Because of the elimination, the number of individuals, they basically are eliminated. This part is eliminated. This part is eliminated. And that is why this becomes constricted. Okay, it becomes constricted. It becomes constricted. Understood? So this is the stabilizing selection. Okay. The examples are, in case of infantile mortality rate, it can be seen that the babies having less than 5.5 pounds of weight or more than 10 pounds of weight, they are eliminated, and babies having around 2.8 to 3.7 kgs, that is 7.3 pounds of weight, they are basically considered to survive. Okay, their mortality chances are very less, because if the weight is less, the chances of hospital acquired infection will be more. Infections will be more. And they may not properly, their organs may not properly work. Now coming to next, directional selection, which is also known as progressive selection. In directional selection, it is seen that more individuals, they acquire a value other than the mean towards the extreme. Okay. So the directional selection basically shows what? That the peak of the curve, the bell-shaped curve, it basically shifts in one direction. So one of the side, they are basically directed, they are influenced by one of the sides, either of the mean. For example, this is the peak. So basically this mean will shift to a particular side. Okay. So the peak shifts in one direction. Understood? Previously in stabilizing selection, it was like this, equally distributed. Understood? Now, directional selection produce a regular change in a population in respect to certain traits. There is a regular change in the population in respect to certain traits. So these certain traits become or have directive influence. This is directional and this is stabilizing. Understood? This form selection operates in a response to a gradual changes in the environmental condition. So those gradual changes, they basically, help the survivors to adapt in that particular direction, and that is why it is known as what? Directional selection or progressive selection. It favors the phenotype which is non-average or extreme and then pushes the phenotype of the population in that direction. It basically favors the phenotype which are non-average, mean extremes, and then pushes the phenotype of the population in that direction. Okay. Directional selection removes more individuals from one end of the normal curve of the variability. So the curve or the peak will shift to one direction, distribution, and adds towards the other end. Okay. So the other side, the number of individuals, they get on increasing, and on the on the other side, the number of individuals getting eliminated, and alters the mean value of the trait in a population in a particular direction. So the mean moves in one direction. Directional selection operates when the environment is changing, okay, means environmental stress. Like Western Butylaria, peppered moth. We studied about in industrial melanism, okay, resistance of insects to DDT. Dichloro-diphenyl trichloroethane is a fertilizer as well as an anti-malarial agent. So DDT was used as an insecticides, but the insecticidal action was actually taken as a survival advantage by some of the insects. They develop resistance towards DDT, and that is why they shift to one side. So those extremes of the survivors, they basically shift towards one of the side which says that okay, this population is going to survive. Okay, so the population which is going to eliminate the basically mean the curve shifts to a particular direction which shows that the evolution is happening in this particular direction. Okay. So this is the directional selection or the progressive selection. Now the third is disruptive selection. In disruptive selection, this is probably the rarest form of the selection but can be very important in bringing about evolutionary change. Most potential among the three. Presence of more than one phenotype in a population, polymorphism. Selection pressure acting from within the population as a result, increased competition may push the phenotype away from the population mean towards the extremes of the population. The disruptive population basically says that because of selection pressure, because of competition for food, shelter, and reproductive mates. Okay, they are going to change their phenotypes, they are going to change their characters, and that is why they become a different part from the average population, and they shift towards the extremes of the population. This can split a population into two subpopulation, means the average individuals, their mortality rate or their chances of survival becomes very less, but the extremes, they actually have high chances, like this. So these were the extremes, okay? So they have survival advantage. And the mean position, it is showing what the average individuals, they are lacking that survival advantage, okay? If the gene flow between the subpopulation is prevented, if anyhow the gene flow between the members of the subpopulation is prevented, each population may give rise to a new species. So each of these extreme populations can now detach and can form a new species. In some cases, this form of selection can give rise to appearance of different phenotypic characters within the same population, known as polymorphism, as we have studied in case of blood groups and in case of sickle cell anemia. Example is given, shell pattern in limpets. Shell patterns of limpets means marine mollusks present a continuous ranging from pure white to dark tan. From pure white to dark tan. These are either attached to the white gooseneck barnacles or to tan colored rocks. Okay, they may attach to white gooseneck barnacles or to tan colored rocks. Okay, the white or light colored limpets camouflage with white barnacles and tan ones were protected on the tan colored rocks. Okay, so both of the tan colored rocks and the white barnacles, they are getting the survival advantage. Limpets of intermediate shell pattern mean those who are not having the white and the tan colored, their amount, their population survival probabilities decreases. Okay, become conspicuous, are preyed by the predatory shorebirds, resulting in the disruptive selection. There are two types of mollusks, I should say, one who are white and the other one who are tan. The one who are white, they basically attach to the white gooseneck barnacles, okay, and the tan colored, they actually get attached to the tan colored rocks, okay. So the white or the light colored limpets, they camouflage, okay, and the tan ones also get camouflaged. Both the extremes mean both the variants, they actually have a survival advantage over here, but the average population, the normal form, okay, it gets predated by the shorebirds, resulting in the disruptive selection. So this is disruptive selection, which is causing disruption in the average population size, and it is basically increasing, okay, the extremes to survive. So these were the three different types of natural selection. Okay, the first one was the stabilizing selection. The second one was the progressive or the directional selection, and the third one was disruptive selection. Understood? Yeah. This is the stabilizing selection, the middle one. I'll change the ink. This is the stabilizing selection. You can see the selection against both extremes. So both the extremes they are depressed, and that is why the curve become narrow. Okay, short, medium, long. For moderate rates, against both examples, extremes were left over and the moderate rates they were increased. Short tails mess up the cat's balance. Long tails drag on the ground. Medium tails are best. Okay, so this is the example to make you understand the stabilizing selection. Okay. This is the population after the selection, the green one, and that was the original population, the dotted one. The dotted one was the original population, and the green one, okay, when I'll do like this, this is the selected one, and this dotted one is the original one, okay. So you can see the curve is becoming narrow, okay. Then the directional selection, original was the curve, it was the original curve. Now after selection, it got shifted to one of the direction, population after selection, okay. One extreme trait against the other extreme. Long wiggly tails look like a snake and scare predators. So it helps in the predation. The longer the tail, the more it looks like a snake, okay. Now we are going to talk about the disruptive selection. In disruptive selection, selection against the mean. Okay, this medium or the mean means the average size of the population is decreasing because of decrease or the less survival advantage. No survival advantage. And extremes they are getting full on survival advantage, and that is why their increase in number basically helps them to adapt, okay, that particular situation. That is why it is mentioned over here, okay. Like for example, short tails help to keep predators from catching you on the ground. Long tails are good for balance in the trees. Medium tails do not help. Okay, the short tail and long tail. Okay, these were three different types of natural selection we talked about. Okay, one thing I should tell you, in the natural selection, these three different types of natural selection, the curves, whether it is stabilizing, directional, or disruptive, they work in different conditions. Like stabilizing selection works where the environmental competition is very less. Directional selection, in which the environmental competition is for a particular group, okay, the other group basically get flourished. Disruptive selection, both the extremes, because of high amount of environmental stress in the for the average population size, the extreme ones, they first slowly emerge and then they got to their peaks, okay. These three different types of natural selection I just talked about. Now speciation, formation of one or more new species from an existing species called speciation. Speciation is a term in which there are new species which are formed from the previous ones, from the existing ones. Speciation are of two types: divergent speciation and transformation speciation. Divergent speciation, origin of one or more new species from an ancestral species, is called divergent speciation. Mean they are sharing the same origin of one or more new species from a same ancestor, okay. It is called divergent speciation. In this type of speciation, ancestor species also continues to exist with new species. So basically the ancestor also evolves and the new species also evolve, okay. In this type of speciation, number of species are increased. In this type of speciation, the total number of species they are increased because ancestor, it is still growing, it is still getting evolved, and the new species they are also basically getting flourished. Divergent speciation, there are two types: allopatric and sympatric. Allopatric speciation, when a species split into two or more geographically isolated population, because of some geographical barriers, the species it gets split into two or more geographically isolated population, and these population finally form a new species. So if the species they get split into two because of the presence of geographical barrier, and they become isolated reproductively, and that is why they got into the race of speciation, making of a new species, and these populations finally form a new species. This mode of speciation is called allopatric speciation, and hence these species are called allopatric species. Okay, Darwin finches. The modifications in the beaks of the birds because of different environmental conditions. Okay, some of them they are getting good amount of seeds, some of them they are getting less amount of seeds, some of them they are basically predaceous in nature. So this is what they are origin, they are getting a origin from the same source. So the ancestral species also, still it is existing, and the new species also still existing. So that is why it is known as what, allopatric speciation. Understood? Sympatric species. In this type of speciation, a subpopulation becomes reproductively isolated from its ancestral form. So in sympatric species, in this type of speciation, a subpopulation in a small group, it becomes reproductively isolated. In case of allopatric species, it was geographical isolation. Okay. In case of sympatric species, it was the reproductive isolation from the ancestral ones. Then the transformation speciation. So you learn about the allopatric and sympatric speciation. Allopatric speciation was basically because of the geographical isolation, and the sympatric speciation was because of the reproductive isolation. Now, transformation speciation. Transformation speciation, in this type of speciation, an ancestor species changed into a new. So ancestor is not continuing. It is itself changing into, evolving into a new species within time. In this process, number of species is not increased, as the ancestors they have actually not survived. That is why they are going to change. Okay. So that is why number of species are not increased. Transformation species are of two types: phyletic and quantum species. Phyletic evolution means when an ancestor species change into a new species by gradual change in thousands of years. Okay, mean the normal course of evolution, like formation of equus, the normal horse, Eohippus to Mesohippus, Mesohippus to Merychippus, Merychippus to Pleohippus. Alag mean they are basically forming in different eras. Okay, and that is the final is the equus, means the today's horse. So this is phyletic evolution. It takes so much of time to happen. That is why this phyletic evolution is given the name the normal or slow or chronic evolution speciation. Is that understood? Yeah. Then is the quantum species. In this process, sudden major changes appears in the ancestral species, and ancestral species immediately change into a new species. So in case of quantum species, it is the formation of immediate effect. The immediate effect leads to the formation of new species. Okay, because the ancestors they come up with some frequent changes. Okay, and the ancestor species they immediately lead to the formation of different species. Understood? There is no connective links which are present in this type of speciation, as connective links are seen in phyletic speciation. Connecting link in phyletic speciation. Understood? Now, it is caused by major mutation. Okay, microevolution. There are some common terms like microevolution. Okay, microevolution is the occurrence of small scale changes in gene frequencies in a population over a few generations. Okay, there are small scale changes in the population. Okay, over a few generations. It occurs at or below the species level, either the above or the below species level. It often causes the formation of new subspecies. These changes may be due to several processes: natural selection, gene flow, mutation, recombination, genetic drift, and formation of, example, formation of clines. So basically microevolution, when small changes they in the gene frequencies they accumulated over very few generations, and they lead to the formation of a new subspecies. Okay, because of natural selection, gene flow, mutation, okay, recombination, genetic drift, and example is formation of clines. Understood? Macroevolution is the evolution which results in the production of new adaptive types through a process of population, fragmentation, and genetic divergence. So the phenomena which lead to the macroevolution mean major changes, okay, which results in the new adaptive types through a process of population fragmentation. Either the mean a large amount of a large group of population, it basically gets fragmented because of any of the reasons, and they undergo the genetic divergence. It is the occurrence of large scale changes in the gene frequencies in a population over a geological time period, consisting of lots of microevolution. So when microevolution they gets on accumulating, leading to the change in gene frequencies, and then they accumulated, it makes a major evolution or macroevolution. Macroevolution in which the population, very large group of population, it gets fragmented and it undergoes the genetic divergence. Okay, so it is the occurrence of large scale changes in the gene frequencies. Macroevolution operates above the species level, never below. So it cannot form the new subspecies and results in the establishment of new genera, families, and order. That is why if a subspecies is forming, it is because of microevolution, and if it is a formation of new genera, okay, closely related species, then it is, or the formation of families or the order, then it is macroevolution. Changes in the organization occurs due to the accumulation of large macro mutations. The divergent evolution of different reptilian groups from initial reptile ancestor is known as macroevolution. Okay, so reptilians or reptilian ancestors they form different categories of different reptilias because of this macroevolution. So these were different types of microevolution and macroevolution. Understood? Now we will be doing the next different laws associated with evolution and the different other factors or the different other terms and the human evolution, which is very important in the leftover part of this chapter in the next class. Till then, my dear students, my beloved students, take care, stay safe, stay at home. Bye bye, take care.